Yeah, I might call this All is Fair in Love and War or Damsel in Distress. I'll think of something. I'll do a couple of videos on this because I haven't seen enough in the biblical world covering this because it offends a lot of people, but probably for the easiest one. But it's basically the concept of just the romance in the apocalypse. Now, obviously, Revelation is all about the woman and the dragon. There's two women, the whore, and then the one clothed in white, the righteousness of Yeshua. And then, of course, in Esther, because where we're living today in the times of the apocalypse with the, upcoming mark of the beast and the death decree with like the Sunday law and World War III and the economy's collapsing right now, it can get kind of depressing. But I was thinking the concept of, like I said, in Esther, where it really is the foundation of it is there's a romance going on at the sideline. Now, this is the basis of every fairy tale, ever, basically. Like, just think of like a kid. I remember one of the first movies I saw was a kid in King Arthur's court. But, just any fairy tale has this foundation. And, I mean, they're always the same plot, right? It's the damsel in distress. It's the hero and the heroine. And basically every single, romance book is basically, or movie is based off of this principle, right? And that's basically, you've heard the Bible is the world's greatest love book, but a lot of people don't really expound on that. So, and that's kind of what I want to talk about here. Because, when you're trying to explain the kingdom of heaven to somebody, in the New Testament, the Son of Man, what did he say? It's wedding or was the number one analogy, okay? It was Adam and Eve or like, say, like the spies and like Rahab, right? Okay, or encircling Jericho. So, it's this concept that it's the marriage, the 5 foolish and 5 wise virgins, okay? Or the wedding supper of the Lamb in Revelation, right? So the marriage is the number one analogy for the kingdom of heaven. Because if you're going to die for your belief, aka persecution, you're going to have some foundation to stand on. And a lot of people, I think, would die for love, but then when you try to explain dying for the kingdom of heaven to someone, they kind of, that's where they're blank. They don't really understand, either getting burned at the stake or whatever. They don't really understand what they're dying for. They're having a hard time connecting the dots. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. But anyway, so like I said, if you look at like the Dark Ages, it's all about castles and dragons and or like knights and shining armor, all of that. And there's a reason for that, because obviously that's kind of like all these cathedrals were kind of copies of castles, right? And there's kind of how they were primarily shaped, and that's a copy of the kingdom of heaven. Because you got to understand especially the Song of Solomon, it's like the neck was compared to like a strong tower, right? And you see this all over the Bible and Psalms and David, and obviously Song of Solomon, or Song of Psalms, maybe I should say. So, but anyway, so this concept originates from basically. The cube is the Garden of Eden, okay? And in the new heaven and new earth, you have the cube coming down out of heaven. That's the bride, okay? And then we talked about in my last video how the cube is the Saturn cult of Islam is a black cube, okay? So that's the fake feminine. That's the Boaz, right? And then the Roman Catholic Church or the Sunday churches is the Jachin or the white square. It's the white and black, right? White and black cubes. Okay, so, or it's the alchemy of silver is Islam is another way of saying it, versus the alchemy of gold. So that would be quicksilver versus basically brass or fool's gold, okay? So anyway, so this whole concept comes is you have obviously and they were expelled out of the east, out of the Garden of Eden. So obviously the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life would be here before the fall. And then the serpent, aka the dragon, stole the woman, right? That was the fall. And then they were expelled out toward the east, right? And so then at the fall, you have, so before it was the two were, man was taken, or woman was taken from man, and they become one flesh, right? That was pre-fall. But then post-fall, there was the curse, and that was this paradigm of the separation between the man and the woman, right? And that was basically the man's curse was his head would go toward the ground, and he cared more about, basically his work. And then the woman was basically her desire will be for your husband, but he shall rule over you, basically. And that's the damsel in distress paradigm that the girl is now stuck in. So, because that's the separation so they were united here, but then expelled out. Of course, I mean, Adam and Eve were married, but let's say their kids, for example, would have been growing up in this paradigm, and that's the paradigm of the damsel in distress. That's that separation because, so we'll say this is let's just say that this is, Seth or Abel, maybe. Anybody in the line of Seth or Noah after the fall, right, is basically there's this veil that exists between the man and the woman has the desire to be fought for, right? That's the whole concept of the damsel in distress. And she's in this prison where she needs to be rescued. She needs to be, you could say, fought over, right? I mean, that's just the whole basis of the Bible in a nutshell, right? I mean, from a spiritual level. That's why in the Old Testament it's all about whores and harlots and virgins, right? So basically, there's this separation that exists between the male and the woman post-fall that did not exist pre-fall, but now does. Is the girl's got, you could name it blemishes, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And she needs to be proven that she's worth being fought over or dying for. Okay, like the Son of Man on the cross dying for the church, right? That's what's really going on, right? So the guy needs to rescue the girl, the woman, and then from a spiritual application, that would be the church. Or circling, the children of Israel circling Jericho, aka Jericho means the moon. In Revelation, the woman stand on the moon clothed with the sun, right? So it's all about the moon, which is the feminine, which is the real silver, and that's the silver bases here, okay, in the sanctuary. Now, it's got to be, you have quicksilver, which is what the alchemists use to become the Saturn cult or Islam. Or you have the real silver. How do you make real silver? Because the sanctuary is all about changing from iron to brass to silver to gold. That's the way of the sanctuary. And that's what alchemy is in a spiritual sense, but alchemy is basically they're using quicksilver to become gold. That's cheating. That's jumping the veil, okay? So basically, the girl's got one of two options. She can get out of this paradigm herself, or she has to wait for someone to rescue her, okay? One requires faith and the other does not. One takes time and the other does not. So the one that does not take time is known as quicksilver, and that's where the girl, if she has pride, she rescues herself and says, I'm going to do it myself, aka I'm gonna, you could say, ask the guy to marry her. Some people, believe it or not, seem to do that in this world. I don't understand it. But so, and that's what in the Bible is known as a whore. Okay? So Rahab, she was a literal, I believe, a prostitute, right, is what it said. But she was a spiritual virgin. aka she waited for the spies to come. She had faith and she waited. This damsel in distress in Jericho waited for the spies to come rescue her. And then that was basically, that was the romance going on in that you could see in Joshua, right? So when the girl waits for a hero to rescue her out of this paradigm, it requires, one, faith, and then two, the chance it may not happen, aka she may die without it ever happening. That's the risk, okay? So if she has faith, and she's humble, she's gonna take the son of Jacob, or the Jacob line, and she's gonna wait and meeken and humble herself and wait for the hero to come rescue her. If she's pride, aka in the line of Esau, she is going to get on the dragon, do it herself, jump the veil, and become the whore. Okay, guys? So that's what's known the damsel in distress paradigm. That's the foundation of what's going on here. Okay? I mean, there's obviously way more to it, but the gatekeepers are, like the Hiram Abiffs in the Roman Catholic Church, right? Those are the gatekeepers, aka that's how they... Because remember, when you're fallen, you're under a veil, and that's deception. So how do you free... So from a spiritual sense now, we just talked about what it is in the physical, it is in the spiritual. So if the girl does this and becomes a whore in the physical, aka asks the guy to marry her or takes the initiative, that is, aka frees herself, that is known as a whore in the Bible, a spiritual whore. So she's not waiting for the son, because how can the Son of Man rescue a chaste virgin if that chaste virgin is not waiting to be rescued? That's the damsel in distress paradigm. How can a hero rescue a heroine if she's not waiting to be rescued? That's why, I mean, that's just the whole concept, okay? So basically, the girl goes and flies off with a dragon, and that's how she frees herself. That's known as alchemy. That's how she frees herself from this paradigm, and that's how supposedly if you go through the gatekeepers, aka Jachin and Boaz, and become a male, an obelisk, is basically that's how they free themselves from the deception, and that's the spiritual nature of the world we live in, or this checkerboard concept. Okay, guys? So, and that's what you got to understand. So then from the guy's concept, the guy is supposed to meeken himself and fight for the girl. That's just the concept, right? But if he's a son of Esau or prideful, what does he do? He says, that's stupid. He laughs at the concept of this, basically you could call it just a romance. And what does he do? He gets on the dragon with her. And because he doesn't think, whoa, I shouldn't, he's got so much pride that they're both together and they're both quote unquote happily ever after. And now they're both male. That's what sodomy is, guys. It's not, doesn't have to be literal two gay people. Or two males. It's two spiritual males. So the whore becomes a male and the guy joins her and becomes a male. And that's what Sodom and Gomorrah is. Whereas if she is of true, like I said, son of Jacob, or daughter of Jacob, you could say, she waits for the hero and remains female virgin. And then the guy has to get off of his high horse. That's known as the Damascus Road. Okay? Another way of saying it, he has to, instead of getting the girl on the horse and they both ride off, no, he's got to fall off his horse backwards and have a humbling experience. And that is how, and rather than elevating the woman to his position, no, he joins the woman in this concept, and that's what's known as becoming a female, okay, or the way of Jacob. So they're both spiritual chaste virgins, females, and that's what's going on in this concept. Because again, I can't stress it enough, is the romance, or if you want to call it the, well, I guess, like I said, back in the book of Esther, it's all about the two, basically, you could say from the world standpoint, they're building a stairway to heaven, okay, with a prince or a vagabond is what the girl does. But basically, the whole game of cat and mouse is a allegory of becoming a line of Jacob or a humble and meek chaste virgin. Okay, guys, that's what this is, what's really going on. It's a much bigger, like I said, that's the primary number one analogy in the Bible. Okay, so that's part one. I'm going to do probably more on them. It's going to need more. There's a lot to unravel here.